Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Titus Plomaritis.
Where's the lady?
There's that button.
Right here?
Yep, there's your laser. And that's the next slide over there.
Right here?
Yep.
Let me start by telling you that I pitched a book in New York to the movie industry. And the king of pitch, his name is, okay, let me just think for a second. He gave us instructions on the first 2 days prior to making the pitch to the movie industry. He gave us a couple of lessons. And he said, what's important? Now, there was 100 authors like myself, and they all want to get their book pitched to New York, to the movie industry. And he told us, when you're making a presentation, there'll be 7 different studios, and you'll have people that are sitting there with their hand on their chin like this. It means they're not interested. And if they sit up on the chair and look at you, they're interested. And they never speak. If they speak, you got them hooked. So, based on that information, I'm going to start off by starting the way I would end. They give you 2 minutes to pitch the book. The book is 600 pages, and you can't pitch the whole book in 2 minutes. So I've decided to take one component to give you a little introduction on my family, on my background, and a little introduction on my sports career, and lastly, the chiropractic component and how I was involved in 3 very, very important political campaigns that all has to do with the advancement of chiropractic. So, getting into my family, my name is Titus Plomaritis. I'm one of 7 children from Greek immigrant parents. Actually, I was born with a gift of speed and a driving force to excel, as you'll find out from reading the book. I'm one of 7 children. There was actually 6 boys in rapid fire, 4 in rapid fire, and then there was a hiatus for 13 years. And then my mother was determined to have a daughter. So finally, she had a daughter. And fortunately, I have that daughter with me. That's her, Priscilla, my baby sister right there. After pumping those 6 children, she said, I want to try one more time, and she got her. So she was our little gift. My father came to the United States when he was 36 years of age. He had a mean temperament, and he brought with him the European or the old-fashioned customs and their anti-educational mentality, which means as soon as one of his children turned to be 14, they were to get a job and help support the family. He was like a mean dud. He was a barber. He only read the Greek Bible and the Greek newspaper, but he did have some good traits. He wasn't a womanizer. He didn't smoke and didn't drink other than a glass of wine occasionally, and he was very honest. So he and I didn't get along very well because every time he came in the front door, Titus went out the back door, and I wanted to get to the South Common, the play area, where I could play with my friends. And this is where one of those stories comes in about Titus, the driving force of little Titus. You imagine a baseball backstop is 20 feet high. A football crossbar is 10 feet high. Now at 7 years of age, Titus is out there trying to kick a ball over a 20-foot backstop, which is impossible. However, the driving force in Titus, by the time he was 10 years of age, he was actually kicking that ball over the backstop, which is a huge accomplishment. But what I'm trying to express here is the driving force that was built into him. And this here, in the course of reading this book, almost throughout the book from the beginning to the end, you're going to read those incidents where there was a driving force that pushed him. Just like now, I'm trying to make this a bestseller. I'm out on a driving tour. I've had prostate cancer. I don't know if I'm going to survive, but I'm going to go until the end, and I will make it a bestseller if I survive. The point I'm trying to make here is that you do have the ability, and the theme of the book, when you get through reading the book, the theme in the book is if you're reaching for the pinnacle of excellence, it's attainable even when it appears impossible. I'll go into the next incident. When Titus was 17 years of age, he was recruited in high school by the United States Army paratroopers because the war had just finished, and they were recruiting juniors and seniors to go to Japan to relieve the troops so they could come home. And they said, my headmaster said to me, Titus, I know the educational mentality in your household, and I had a struggle even to get to that level in school. This would be a great opportunity for you to go into the service, and when you come out, you'd have an opportunity to get a free scholarship to go to college. So I took that option, and it was one of the best things I've ever done in my life because I loved athletics, I loved physical fitness, and the first thing they did was they shipped me off to Japan. And if you went to Japan, they cut the 18-month commitment to 15 months. So this is where one of the stories will come in on the athletic component. You'll hear that in a few minutes. But while in Japan, they had a physical fitness contest for our company. And the odds-on favorite was W.W. Moskowitz. And he was a cover boy on Mr. America magazine. You know, that pose like that with the jockstrap? Well, that was him, W.W. Moskowitz. He had his picture all over the locker room in the building, and everybody was frightened with him, frightened for him. They said, nobody can beat this guy. Well, the competition began, and when you get into the push-ups, this guy is going one arm like this, and we're struggling with two hands. It came to the chin-ups, he's going like this one arm, and we're struggling with two arms. It came to the rope climbing, he climbs it like a monkey. However, when it got to the agility test, he lost ground to all of us, especially Titus. Then we get to the jumping skills on the platforms. You start jumping on a small platform and a larger one up to 34 feet. And that's where his fear complex came in. So Titus gained a little bit of ground on that level. We got to the rifle range. He couldn't hit the target. I was a sharpshooter. So I gained footage on that area. And with the company now, they keep the scores as you're going along, and they pair them off in twos. 1 and 2, 3 and 4, 5 and 6. Moskowitz and Titus were the last two people. He was leading, he had a pretty good, comfortable margin, and Titus was in second place. It came down to the final sprints, and this was my bag. We had to run 30-yard sprints 6 times, but you had to go from here to there, touch the post, pivot, and come back and touch the post and pivot 6 times. When I was a kid, and I'll just revert back, when I was a kid, I used to always have a football in my hand, and if I couldn't afford a football, I had a bag stuffed with stockings or something. It was make-believe football. And when I was walking from the house to do an errand for my mother to go to the market, I'd be walking down, and if I saw a person coming down, I'd give them a handshake, a head fake, and I would give them a quick dodge, and they'd shit their pants sometimes. I scared them. But that's where I got my quickness here. It's all those stop and go, stop and go. So I'm thinking of this here while I'm in that competition. And now we go. There's 2 ways to get points here. The timekeeper's got the clock for the overall time, and we got the 6 lengths to go. All right. We go 1 length. I probably ahead of them by 2 steps. By the time we completed the entire 6 laps, I beat him by a full lap. And the timer on the clock had Titus in second place and him in 25th. They do all the calculations, and Titus wins. That was the driving force again. That's what I'm trying to stress to you, the importance of knowing that if you're reaching for that pinnacle for excellence, it is attainable. Because W.W. Moskowitz stuck in my brain my whole life. That was his name, and I still remember it. And he and I became good friends after that. And he took his posters down, by the way, and put them back inside his locker. Because he knew the little Greek Titus was able to win that contest. I want to get into here. I'm going to fast forward to you now. I'm going to fast forward to Titus, the football player, at Lowell High School. Now, I'm going to fast forward to the next to the Thanksgiving game, which would be the big game of the year. It was in Quincy, Massachusetts. This is going back quite a few years. These stories are in the book, by the way. Everything I'm telling you is in the book. I'm just fast forward because you can't give you 600 pages in 40 minutes. I'm going to fast forward to the football game in Quincy, Massachusetts. It was a rainy day. The grass was wet. It was misty. And Lowell High School is trailing 9-0 at halftime. And we were undefeated going into this game, looking ahead to the Lawrence. Lowell Lawrence is the big Thanksgiving Day rival. We're trailing 9-0, and I'm sitting in a chair like this lady right here. And the coach is giving us a pep talk in the locker room. And he's got his hand on my shoulder. I'm in the front row, and he's got his hand on my shoulder. Now, this guy's a big joker. He's 6'5", 270 pounds. He was an end for the Green Bay Packers, and he's our coach. And he's got his hand on my shoulder, and he says, "Okay, let's go." And everybody gets up and run. I can't budge from that seat. He leans over into my ear, because I fumbled twice in the first half. He leans over in my ear and he said, "Hang on to the fucking football." That's exactly what the coach told Titus. So did he ever? Well, in the second half, Titus goes out kamikaze style, every punt that was thrown on a dead run, catching the punts. He scores 2 touchdowns, throws a touchdown pass, kicks 4 point afters, and we win the game 28-9. Getting into the Lawrence game. Lowell High School never had an undefeated team in the history of Lowell, going back to 1890. On the back cover, just turn it over. Don't open the book, but turn it over. And you see the back cover on that book? It took 40 minutes to play the last 4 seconds. Most people would say that's impossible. How'd you do it? Well, you got to buy the book to find the answer, but I'm going to tell you ahead of time. The score is 19-16, and Lawrence is leading. The clock is running down, the ball is on the 4-yard line, it's 4th down, and there's less than 10 seconds on the clock. The coach calls my number. So Titus, because that's Titus on the back cover, scoring the tying touchdown. It took the police 20 minutes to get the people off the field because they bombarded the field, they stole my helmet, they stole the football, and it took the police 20 minutes to clear the field. There was 4 seconds on the clock. We got to try the point after now, and the clock does not move on the point after. Now I'm reflecting back when I was a kid on the South Common. It took me 3 years to be able to kick that ball over, and I'm just reflecting on that. I said, wow, this is, if I ever needed to have a good placement, it's right now. And the captain on the team was the center. He's telling the lineman, give Titus a chance. With all anybody can do to block him. And Jimmy Fallon, the quarterback, is my holder. And then just as we're breaking the huddle, I said, Jimmy, get it down. There's pressure on everybody. Pressure on the center, pressure on the holder. I said, Jimmy, you get it down, I'll get it over. So now we got that, the drama, the dead silence in the stadium. Dead silence. The ball is snapped, the ball is down, and pow. You'll see that picture in the book. It's the most historic point after touchdown ever in the history of Lowell Lawrence. Every 10 years they run that story in the newspaper. This is the most exciting football game in the history. Because we still had 4 seconds on the clock. It took the police another 20 minutes to clear the field. That's why it took 40 minutes to play the last 4 seconds. The ball that was stolen was given to me in a little box with a ribbon on it at the victory dance that night. I still have it on my, I willed it to the high school. I willed the shoes. I had a pair of kicking shoes. I willed the shoes and the ball to my high school. So when I'm gone, that's where that's going. It'll probably be in a case down there. But that was another example of the driving force. And that was the first undefeated. I kicked all 3 points, and I kicked the field goal, and I played the entire game on defense and safety. This is where the story gets exciting. I'm playing safety in the clock is running out. This is going to probably be the last play of the game. And I'm watching the offensive on the other side. These are the first time, and the quarterback is a big sucker. He's about 6'2", maybe 220. In that era, that was big for a quarterback. And I can see the play developing. And I can see that it's a bootleg. I don't know if you people know what a bootleg is. A bootleg is when the quarterback takes the ball and he hides it, and the whole team runs one way, and he just drifts over like he's just getting out of the way. But Titus has seen that play many, many times. And I say to myself, that sucker's got the ball. So I'm watching him, I'm following him, and sure in hell, everybody's over there, and it's just between him and me, and the goalpost in back of me. And I hadn't allowed anybody to penetrate me at that point. Nobody from the first team got by me. And I can see him now. And now he's got the ball visible, and he starts picking up those legs, and I'm looking at him, and I'm back here. I said, what do I wait for him here, or do I go after him? And I said to myself, be like you're a jet. Put your laser beam right below the knee and go right at him. And I did. I ran as fast as I could. Bang! I hit him right down here. He went up in the air and he landed on his head. He was out cold. I jumped up. I hurt my arm so much my hand went numb immediately. I broke it, but I didn't know it at that time. And I always jumped up so the enemy wouldn't know I was hurt. So I jumped up on my feet and I ran over to the sideline. It took 10 minutes to revive this guy, and the game was over. Now I'm in the shower room. And I said to the trainer, I said, geez, I can't pick up my arm. Can you cut my shirt off so I can take a shower? So the trainer cuts off my shirt. And I said, wow, I'm getting that nice hot water on me. Next thing I noticed, somebody tapped me on the shoulder, the trainer again. He said, Titus, the coaches want you in their room. I said, well, as soon as I take the shower, I'll get over there. Titus, they want you there now. I said, okay, so I grabbed the towel and put it around my waist. I walk into this room. There's 5 coaches sitting there, all smoking cigars. They're all bare-assed. Their testicles are hanging to the floor. They said, Titus, my boy, we want you here at Mississippi State. Titus, we're going to make you an All-American. They started giving me promises and promises and promises. And I'm thinking, Ray Riddick said, don't make a commitment. So I told him, I said, look, my father is very important in making the decision like this. I didn't even talk to my father, but I had to think of one excuse after the next so I wouldn't make a commitment. All right. I get out of the room in one piece with the towel around me, and all I can envision these birds sitting there puffing on cigars, and they're looking for the future. So I go in there and I change my clothes. My arm is still numb as can be. I can't lift it up. I get my clothes on, I walk outside, and Jazz Luckett is out there waiting for me. That was a pre-arrangement. Now, Jazz Luckett is the guy from the grain store. Jazz Luckett, yeah. How's the other guy? Slick Martin was the coach. Yeah, Slick Martin. Am I running out of time?
No, you
Going okay? All right, because I want to get into the chiropractic component. The athletics is over right now, okay? At 2 o'clock in the morning, I am moaning so much because the arrangement was for me to stay with Jazz Luckett, the sponsor, and he was going to take me to the airport in the morning. Well, that night about 2 o'clock, I am in pain, and they can hear the moaning. So they come in to the room where I'm at, take me to the hospital. Crazy, when I get to the hospital, the football coach is there, the athletic director is there, the president of the university is there. They're all there. They want to make sure that Titus is okay. And I'm there, and they put a splint on my back. They doped me up, and so I was at least able to talk. And I said, I got to get that plane tomorrow morning. I got to get back. They said, no, you're not leaving here, Titus. The president of the university said, you're staying here, my boy. We want to make sure you're healthy before you go back. They wanted, because these guys thought I was hooked in there. I didn't make a commitment, but I probably gave them a few answers that might have been encouraging, but I made no commitment. Anyway, I'm going to fast forward again. It's 26 years later. This slide you're going to see. See, I'm off track here, but I'll see if I can get to where that slide is. Hey, But he came here, I think he had a print. All right, I'm glad it doesn't work, I can use this one. This is the one, that's the picture, it's on the back of the book. I'm gonna move forward. Now this is the newspaper article that came out the day after that Mississippi game. Massachusetts ace to attend state. It looks like, it looks about 6'2" in that picture, doesn't it? And then, I didn't get to the All-Star game. I played in the All-Star game and I was most valuable player in that. This gal was the winner of the baton twirlers. And this one here is what I want to show you. The guy, Jerry Crowell, anybody in here know that name? Jerry Crowell was the tackle that played against me at that scrimmage I told you about. 26 years later, he became a Southern humorist, very famous in Mississippi. He became a Southern humorist. And 26 years later, they honored him, the Jerry Crowell Day. So he cuts a live album, and on side one, cut one, he honored Titus Plomaritis. And I want you to listen to what his comments were. I think I got it. I just speed this up.
It's playing. I don't think it's connected to audio.
Hold on, Titus.
Can you hear that? It's only 2 minutes, shoot. I don't know whether it's a name you remember as a kid.
Good gracious alive. Woo! That's some kind of something or another, love every one of you. I don't know of any place I had rather be than right here. And for me to do a show at Mississippi State University is just like throwing a rabbit in a briar patch. Because I have been here before. I played football at Mississippi State University back in, And I remember back in the spring of '49, we had 13 weeks of spring training. There was a lot of walk-ons, and every Saturday at the big scrimmage, we did the best we could to hold our position because there's so many walking on going out for football. I was afraid they may break my place and give it to one of them. So I was putting out all I could, and one day a fellow walked up. His name was Titus Plomaritis, and he was from up in New England. And that was the runningest thing I have ever seen in all my life. He would reverse the field sometimes just to show us how he could run through us. Just getting it. Oh! They pitched the ball to him one time on a quick pitch, and I was playing left defensive tackle. And I busted through and got him around the waist and commenced to squeezing him and was going to take him down to the ground. And about that time he wiggled. And went straight up in the air, come down in my back and stomped me and bellied back around to the other side. And I was laying there beating the ground with my fist and hollering. And my teammate, Dog Owen, said, Jerry, get up and chase him. I said, lay still. He'll be back by here in a minute.
All right. This is earlier my paratrooper story, so I'm going to get into the politics. Here we go. This is the first. I was involved in 3 very instrumental campaigns, political campaigns. And we had, I think I told you earlier, if not, I'll tell you again, that every time you can't trust politicians. When a guy tells you he's going to support your bill or support your cause, that's because he knows someone else is going to veto it, like we had in New Hampshire. This is going back, it's a very interesting story. Now, when I graduated from chiropractic college, I wanted to set up in Lowell, Massachusetts, because I had very good name recognition there. At that time, they were arresting chiropractors for practicing medicine without a license. And I had 3 children, and Claire had another one in the basket there. So I said, I can't jeopardize the safety of my family, so I opted to move to New Hampshire, which had one of the worst bills in the United States, one of the first laws. So I decided at that time that when I got there, that I would move back to Massachusetts when the law was changed. And in '66, Governor Volpe signed a bill legalizing chiropractic in Massachusetts. But at that time, my children had been accustomed to, they had their friends in Pelham, New Hampshire, in the school system, and I opted not to move. So that's why I was there. So I made up my mind that I'm going to change the law in New Hampshire, and this is why I'm getting to this story here. After seeing three very devastating losses, we had the bill all the way to the governor's desk, and the governor had promised us that if the bill gets to his desk, he's going to sign it. But when it got there, he vetoes it. A second time, a third time. So we figured we have to do something about this, and we have to get a governor. No matter which senator you get, they play games with you. So this is what Titus did. And I got the support of the chiropractors in the state of New Hampshire. He said, we are going to elect a governor that believes in our cause. So getting back to Claire now, this is my wife Claire. She was the first legislator to get elected in Pelham, New Hampshire in 230 years. I was a campaign manager. That was the beginning of the accreditation process. We needed to get somebody in there that was the eyes and the ears of the legislators to know who's bullshitting us. Because you had to know that. Because somebody was fooling you all the time. They're playing games with you. The second step, this is the first Democratic picnic in the town of Pelham. This is Senator McIntyre. He's a U.S. Senator. We had him at the House. We had Senator Durkin at the House. This is at my home. That's my family, by the way. That's my wife, Claire. This is my wife. This is Titus Jr. This is Lynn. This is Stephen. And this is Diane. The two boys are orthopedic surgeons, and the two girls are educators. When I get back to the beginning of the story, remember I told you about the anti-educational mentality? Well, this is going from one extreme to the other. These four kids all went through graduate school without a dime in debt, all thanks to the chiropractic profession that provided me with that income. That's why I'm here today, to let you people know how happy I am and how happy I've been through my life through chiropractic. I got those steps from getting the scholarship at Boston University. I got the first scholarship from that undefeated team because I was recruited by the greatest quarterback in the history of Massachusetts or all across the country. His name was Harry Aganis. They even named a stadium after him. He was the one that influenced me to go to BU, to answer your question. Because yesterday my nephew here said to me, you keep talking about Boston University. How does Jerry Crowell, how does Mississippi State come in? Now you know the story. I told you I'd answer that today. That's it. Now, getting back to the campaign. You see this badge? Let me tell you how this badge came about. At this picnic at my home, we got two people running for governor. We have one person that was very friendly with my wife and myself. His name was, whatever it was. As I'm speaking fast, I'm forgetting names. When you're 88, you do that. So, this is Hugh Gallen. If you look at the badge, it says Plomaritis Official Photographer. When I went to Boston University, my minor was photography. When I went to the first chiropractic college in California, Glendale Chiropractic College, they paid my tuition because I was their official photographer. That's how I got my way through school. I had no help. I did this on my own. And that's where that driving force comes in again. Getting back to this campaign. Del Downing, the name just came to me. It takes a little while. That was the senator, 5 terms elected state senator for 10 years. And Hugh Gallen is a car dealer. Nobody knows who he is. He's on the next slide, I think. There's the Gallen mobile. Del Downing asked me to support him And I said, I can't do it. I said, I can't support you. He said, why? I said, because you were playing games with us. I said, you're telling us you're supporting us, but you're not voting for our bill, you're voting for the non-accredited agency that's over here promoting their school. He said, I'll drop all affiliations with him. I said, Del, it's too late. The only other guy running is a car dealer. Nobody ever heard of Gallon. He's a car dealer. It didn't win anything. But he said to me, he came over to my home, like everybody was at my house, we had all these politicians, and I had to get up on the first step to be eye to eye with him. And he says to me, he said, Titus, if I get elected, and really he didn't have a snowball's chance in hell of getting elected, nobody heard of him. If I get elected, I'll support accreditation because I know you support accreditation. But if you support me and I get elected, I'll hand carry that sucker through the Senate for you. Those are his words. I went over to a car dealer, it was a friend of mine, a patient of mine, and I said, Dick, can you donate one of those buses for me? He said, what for? I said, I'm going to make the governor, I'm going to make Hugh Gallon the next governor in the state, and I'm going to drive that bus all over the state, and they'll get recognition because I'll be advertising your Volkswagen bus. He said, let me go talk to my partner. He didn't talk to his partner. He comes up. He said, yes, not only are we going to donate the bus, we're going to letter it for you. So they put the lettering on it. I put a roof rack on top, and I got a speaker up there, and I had a buddy of mine on the loudspeaker. He was on the microphone. I'll speed this up. We went north, south, east, and west, and I drove that bus 15,000 miles. Every chiropractor that was in our chiropractic association, we had 100. The straight element or the non, whatever, I don't know what you call them today, but we call them straights at that time. They had 200 people there, all came in because the exam was so easy, it was a dumping ground for from the non-accredited schools. Every chiropractor, the first time around, I went to headquarters, I told Gallon, I'm going to make you the next governor. We got the literature, put the literature in the bus, I'd go to a doctor's office and I'd be pounding the thing on the ground, and Frank, the guy on the loudspeaker, would say, thank you, Dr. Houselander, we appreciate your support for Governor Gallon. He'd open the window and say, get that goddamn thing off my lawn. They were all, 90% of the chiropractors were Republicans. He said, I'm a Democrat, I'm a Republican. You're trying to put me out of business? So I go through that speech every time, what Gallon said. If you support me, I'll hand carry that sucker through the Senate. I said, do you want accreditation in this state? I must have repeated that speech 500 times before it sunk in. And we had the, okay, fast, here we go. A week before the election, we delivered to the Gallon headquarters 100 letters from each chiropractor addressed to each 100 of their best patients. We dropped off 10,000 letters to the governor's office and said, this is going to get you elected. And that did get him elected. That night he ended up pulling off the biggest upset in political history in New Hampshire, defeating an unknown car dealer, defeating a 3-term appointed governor. And at the very first fundraiser for Hugh Gallon, he gets up in the microphone and he says, give me 2 Titus Plomaritis and I'll run for president. And that's a quote. Now, I got the last one. Oh yes. A couple of weeks later, Hugh Gallon, I'm up at the State House with Claire, and I'm talking to Claire outside, and the governor calls me. He says, Titus, can you come in here for a minute? I said, yes. I go in his office, and he says, Jimmy Carter called me up, and he said, can you get Titus to work for me, because Ted Kennedy is going to run against me. And it's a no-no for somebody to run against an incumbent. Now he's going to run against Jimmy Carter. I said, I can't, Hugh, I'm sorry. He said, why? I said, because Medicare is not included in the bill. He said, well, let me call him up. She calls him back, and Jimmy Carter says, I do too have it in the bill. So he said, he said, you tell that to Titus. He gives me the phone. Huh? I said, Your Excellency. He said, never mind that. You just call me Jimmy. I said, okay, call me Titus. They said, we're on a first name basis. I said, yeah, you're in the bill. He said, I do have it in the bill. I said, Jimmy, you have it in the bill with a mandate. The mandate says you can go to a chiropractor provided you're referred by a medical doctor. I said, that won't cut the mustard. He said, what do I need to do to get your support? I said, take that damn thing out of the bill. So I have to speed this up because time running out. I met with Chip Carter. I had Rosalind Carter at the house. I'll show you the slides I got here because this is a very interesting topic. This is when I was sworn in as the very first. I'd like to finish that story, but it's so good. We make it fast. We got the bill passed because we had 38 people waiting to take the exam. Normally it's 5 people every exam period. The 38 because the secretary of the board was also one of our people from National College, and he would take and ship when the question, the exam came in, he'd ship it to Buffalo and say, oh, it accidentally went to Buffalo. He put this on, he put those guys off for almost 3 years until I could get on board. So the very first thing the governor did, he appointed me to the Board of Examiners. We had a prearranged agreement. I get on the board, I go into the meeting and prearranged. We're having a 30-minute recess. I go into the governor's office. He's got the Attorney General and the Commissioner of Education sitting in 2 chairs. He's sitting in 3rd and I'm in the 4th. They're all prearranged. We're going to get a letter out to every guidance counselor in the state. It jeopardizes the health and safety of the consumer. That went through big time. We gave an exam. 38 people took the exam, only to numbers. I'd love to tell you how we did this. It was such a great story because that's how Wiki came into play. You know, the National Board didn't have Wiki at that time. I developed that in New Hampshire. We had a clinical competency exam in New Hampshire. It was kind of a rough method. I tell the Secretary of State, because what they did, they assigned an Assistant Attorney General to my committee and the Assistant Secretary of State. We gave the exam to 38 people. Only 1 person passed. And in reviewing the exams, there were 37 of them from the non-accredited schools, only 1 from an accredited school. And that was a foundation for us. The 2 non-accredited schools sued the board. So they had me on the stand for 3 days testifying Superior Court. We win the case. They appeal the case to the Supreme Court. We win in the Supreme Court. And that is, my friends, that Supreme Court decision went nationwide. And that's how Wiki was developed. What else can I tell you before I'd love to tell you. Let me see what else is on it. Oh, there's maybe one more. When I had my wife gave me a surprise birthday, and the governor of New Hampshire came in a helicopter in my backyard. And the chief of police, who was my friend, he was a Republican, and we used to sit on the same bank board together. He said to me, because we had the picnic, and that screwed up the traffic. Then we had the First Lady to my home. That screwed up the traffic. Or this thing here. When he came to, they said, a plane crashed in Dr. Plomaritis' backyard. The chief of police comes over, and it's the governor. So I gave the chief of police a piece of cake. I said, it's my birthday today. I gave him a piece of cake, and he left. But the next one here, next slide, I think, is Rosalind Carter came to the house, and she said to me, Jimmy said, you got some additional information for me? I said, yes. And then this is the First Lady coming to the house. That's my precious wife. And this is her in the living room. And when I was in Madison Square Garden, when Ted Kennedy quit, Jimmy Carter gave me credit for that too. And because I used my New Hampshire experience to share this with every chiropractor across the United States. And that's how we beat him on that level. And when he quit, they put me on the front page of the magazine. These are the 3 pictures. The one on the left is my first connection with Jimmy Carter when I was at the White House. The second one is when he came to Pelham, New Hampshire to greet my wife and myself, and we had dinner together. And then the third one is when I went back to the White House. He was so happy that he beat Ted Kennedy, he couldn't believe it. And the picture, the reason why I show you that badge all the time is because the governor gave me that badge because of my I was a professional photographer. And that's why I was so proud. That was part of my audio-visual aids from Boston University. And I think there may be one more slide. This is Chip Carter also, and that's the letter from Stu Eisenstadt from the White House. You notice it's addressed to me. That's the letter that says that we remove the mandate. How do you like that? That is probably the biggest accomplishment in chiropractic you'll ever hear, because that allowed 40 million Medicare patients go to chiropractors without intervention. And this here is a letter from the White House telling me to wear the pin on my lapel so the Secret Service will know who I am and they won't shoot me. And this here, ladies and gentlemen, is when I was the president of the National Board for 6 years, and we developed Wiki. I tell you, in the state of New Hampshire, we had it in the rough edge. When I got to the National Board, we polished it up and made it national. That's where that came from. And also, I was the president for the first international chiropractic headquarters at no expense to the chiropractic profession. And this is Rosalind Carter's letter to me just a couple of weeks ago, telling me that she has my book and she's going to do a review for me. So I expect everybody here that has the book, you're going to do a review for me. I'd like to get all your can I get all their email addresses so I can send you a link to do a review for me? So as you come up and I autograph your book, I want you to sign your email address. We'll do it that way. What else? Oh, this was a commencement address I gave at Northwestern Chiropractic College. And for a guy that stayed back in the 4th grade, or the 5th grade, this is pretty good. Here I am giving a commencement address. And I got BU School of Ed because that was my basic training at Boston University. And I want you to know that this was very important. My topic was excellence versus mediocrity. Again, if you're reaching for the pinnacle of excellence, it's attainable, even if it appears impossible. In my closing phrase, I would like to repeat to you, as I told this audience, because my lecture over there was my life story in slow motion. In finalizing it, I told the audience that my father said to me on his deathbed, Titus Plomaritis, that's Greek for Titus, my boy, Thasakapau, that means I love you. Ekadis, Kalor Yaneka, you have a very nice wife. He didn't come to my wedding because I married a Catholic girl. He's telling me that she said, now he says, Kalor Pidya, that means and wonderful children on this dying bed. With that, I thank you very much for having me here today. We'll set something up where I'll autograph each book for you. I'll personalize each one. And give me a paper here so you can put your email address and print it so I can read it.
Maybe have
If we could do a quick
everyone up
photo
front. We'll
with
do a
Dr.
big group
Plomaritis
photo.
just
Come on up
fast.
front.
You want me standing or you want me to 3-point stance?
No, you're good. You're good.
Make sure you get my necktie in there.
Get low from.
Be easy as you can.
Get low from.
Oh.
Oh, this is good. This is good. Oh. Okay, smile big. 1, 2, 3.